Welcome back to the Rick Smith Show. Now, here is Rick Smith.
So while Donald Trump was in Ohio doing his grievance rant, and not to a very enthusiastic crowd. I mean, some of the media was saying, no, there's a bunch of people there. But, some of the reporting is people were leaving disgruntled. They got free tickets and still left early. That didn't stop Ohio Senator Rob Portman from saying that Donald Trump is definitely the leader of the Republican Party. And I got to tell you, if you're the Republicans, you got to be really uncomfortable with the guy who hasn't changed his shtick. No new material taken to the road. Going to be interesting to see how it plays out. But here to share some thoughts on Trump's visit to Ohio, Portman's response, and whatever else we get around to, I've asked David Pepper to come talk with us. David's the former chairman of the Ohio Democratic Party. David, thanks for taking time for us.
Thank you. It's good to be back with you.
So you had the Orange Menace in the great state of Ohio. You had a bunch of people show up. I don't think it was a great performance. A little low energy.
Yeah, it seemed like it. I actually saw some video of people leaving while he was speaking, and it was not just one or two. It was just consistent lines. A reporter tried to ask what was the deal, and people actually seemed kind of bored. And so the second half of these things start to ramble. He's only talking about himself. He's not getting into sort of even the current topics that the right wingers like. So, yeah, I think it was a pretty, and the other one was, and we can talk about it later, but, the big action in Ohio right now is the Senate primary. If you're a Republican, he only allowed this challenger of one of the Congress people speak. And he did this sort of a goofy apprentice-like, hey, yell out if you like this candidate for senator and that. And he got bored and stopped doing it. And that was it. So, these people, literally one of the candidates had an airplane with a sign overhead. Another's they're all bending over backwards to get Trump to support them. And he treated them like a joke. So that was also not very good. If you're the Republican Party, that is not what you want to see happen.
No, it's what I want to see, because I think it's going to be fun watching as these candidates do trip over themselves. Because look, here in Pennsylvania, where I'm at, we've got kind of the same scenario. We got a bunch of Trump wannabes who are going to be vying for his attention. So I can't wait for him to come to our backyard and start with the game show politics that he's trying to pull off here.
I mean, he treated them like dirt. I mean, it was literally reminded me of the old Apprentice shows. But he's calling out their name. The crowd only liked the biggest applause was for the biggest right winger, this guy Josh Mandel, and then he stopped. And so it really wasn't good.
You mean the Josh Mandel that got thrown out of Mar-a-Lago?
Yeah, but in Ohio, like, if the goal is to beat Trump, like to actually beat him, no one's going to out Trump Mandel, and that crowd showed it. I mean, I actually think if I was if I had to bet now, that's who Trump's going to like the most, because this guy, he's like Josh Hawley. He literally is just right out of Josh Hawley, playbook, but I think actually worse. So, yeah, he's and that's the guy who got the biggest applause.
Yeah, spoiled rich kid.
So the whole thing was, but the other one, the reason he was in that it was funny. He went to that county to help a candidate run against the one guy who voted for impeachment from Ohio, and that's Anthony Gonzalez. So the whole thing is just like a retribution tour anyway. So that'll be interesting how that primary plays out for that congressional seat. But the whole thing was just honestly bizarre.
Yeah, well, I mean, the last couple of years with the former guy been absolutely bizarre. But it got Portman's attention, and Portman said that he's the guy. So I'll take that from Portman. But Portman also did say that the infrastructure bill that was a bipartisan bill last week, that there was kind of some kerfuffle over, and then it was off, and now it's back on. Evidently, It was off. Now it's back on, Portman says.
Yeah, first of all, I mean, Portman has been one of the true cowards the last 4 or 5 years. I mean, he acts like a passive figure. It also talks about bipartisanship. If people like Portman had spoken up 4 years ago, I don't think Donald Trump would have, or 8 years ago when it was birtherism, I don't think Trump would have ever emerged. So it's the spinelessness of guys like Portman that are the reason that the primary to replace Portman is as ridiculous as it is. It's symbolic. Portman is ushering the era of these Trump acolytes because people like him wouldn't stand up. So in a way, I think he's saying it's the party of Trump because he thinks that'll keep Trump happy. But I also think the truth is it really is. I mean, you watch the Senate primary, it is the party of Trump. And all these people care about, and they say it, is who's most loyal to Trump. This woman, Jane Timken, who was the state chair when I was state chair, she runs around with this long checklist about what she did for Trump and then has a check next to her and X's next to all the other candidates. I mean, J.D. Vance, who's announcing this week, ripped on Trump in 2016. He is now totally converting himself. It's the most pathetic change of brand I've ever seen. Like, here he's got kind of this nice image from the book he wrote. He's tarnishing it all to sound like he's a Trump guy. I mean, to watch this primary, I mean, Portman is right. I mean, it clearly, at least these candidates think that the only way you can win is to be the Trump person, which is, I think long-term for Republicans, very bad. In the short term, though, it may be but what wins someone the primary.
I see here again. You brought up J.D. Vance, and I'm like, how's this guy going to jump into an election, given what he said last week about the military and General Milley? I mean, this idea of, I guess, he thinks we've lost wars, a bunch of them, and he throws that out. Very bizarre to me.
It is. My view on all this, and I think you'd agree, is no political office is literally worth selling your soul or destroying your brand. And here J.D. Vance has gotten all this, respect out of, a lot of people didn't like his book for reasons I get. He sort of, took a battle axe to Appalachia in some ways and blamed the people for problems that are economic, as we know, that are far bigger forces than their own activity or behavior. But put that aside, the guy comes out of that with this great brand. He could do so much good in the world around opioids or investing in Appalachia, you name it. He's throwing it all down the drain just for a Senate primary. Like, it's not worth it. What a ridiculous way to just tarnish yourself. He's now on Tucker Carlson all the time. He's taking these bizarre shots at Milley. I mean, honestly, I don't know what's gotten into people that they think it's the reason Trump's been so empowered. People are willing to give everything else in their life away. Mike Pence, including have his life threatened, in order to make Trump happy. It's incredible to watch.
No, it's just bizarre, is what it is. But and like I keep coming back to, I'm so glad that he lost. I'm glad we have Joe Biden. Like I said before, he wasn't my first choice, but I think he is the right choice. He's showing up every day, doing the work, and we're moving forward. And this infrastructure bill that I want to go back to is something that I think is important. I like the fact, okay, you got a bipartisan bill. We got some of the stuff done, but you still got to do the other stuff. And this idea that somehow the Republicans in Portman were sideswiped, I think that was Portman's word. Is ridiculous, because Democrats have always said we're going to still move on the things we don't get. There was no shock here if you were paying attention.
I mean, I actually liked what Biden said the other day. They have every right to try and, defeat what we try and do, but we can't. We're not going to commit to not doing it. I mean, we're in the majority. McConnell's the minority leader. Apparently he made some threat today. Given what we saw for 4 years, they didn't care at all about bipartisanship on anything, the tax scam. But now all of a sudden, Portman every week is lecturing Biden on how to be bipartisan. So if you can come up with a way that some of this is bipartisan, great. But if it's the cost of giving away everything else, it's not worth it.
Yep.
My hope is, again, Biden's been around a lot longer than I have. So I hope he does this, and I have faith that he knows what he's doing here, obviously. But yeah, if you can give a sort of a sense of bipartisanship on key things that 80% agree on, and then you're able to do something else that, frankly, 65 or 70% agree on, but Rob Portman doesn't, you do both things. You never, I don't think, should commit to tanking the latter half just to keep Rob Portman happy. I mean, that would be, I'm a Democrat, I'm loyal. That would really frustrate me because here's the thing, and we've talked about this before. This stuff in the end matters if people see it in their community, in their state. They'll like the press conference, but they've seen press conferences for years. If the people in Ohio, city, small town, don't actually see something, then it really, in the end, won't change anything about voting, about their life. And so winnowing it down to very little just to get a couple of Republican votes is self-defeating. Unless you think politics is just a game, at least, if you really want this to matter, it needs to be big enough and smart enough to actually create jobs, fix the bridge down the street that everyone knows is terrible. And that means it needs to be big enough. And we know the Republicans, in the end, they don't want it to be big enough. They don't want it to be something that really changes things. And so, yes, make it, if you can get to the agreement, great. If you stop at that, do nothing else, frankly, you just let them win. Because everyone got excited to vote for everybody here. We win. And if they still don't see anything from that, that goes right back to what happened in 2010, 2014.
No, I mean, at the end of the day, the Reagan question, are you better off now than you were 4 years ago, applies in every election. Did you make people's lives better? Is the economy working for the average everyday working stiff? And sadly, right now, it's not. We still have people who are food insecure. We still have, hungry. We still have people who aren't getting jobs. There are still people who are unemployed. We still have problems. We need to put aside some of these differences and actually do that stuff.
Yeah, and I'll say, I actually think Biden so far has done great. I mean, I think on most things, vaccines and the original recovery plan, but I think on every issue, you have to have the same attitude, which is do it in a way that really makes a difference. And if you can get some Republicans votes and have it be big enough to make a difference, great. But it's not worth diluting it. And that's why, I don't know what they're discussing in the back rooms. But if anyone ever says, well, in order to get the Republican votes, we aren't going to do the bigger one, I think that would be a huge mistake.
Yeah, and I don't think it was ever said because nobody in their right mind would.
They would say it. Like I said, I thought Biden's statement, not at the press conference, but the next day, where he said, I didn't make them commit to not fight against the bigger reconciliation package, but I'm not committing not to fight for it. I mean, that sounds fair. And by God, if Democrats can't get it together to do some element of the bigger one, shame on us.
Yeah, ultimately.
But the idea that McConnell is somehow saying that, we can't do the bigger one. I mean, again, at some point you win, you go get stuff done.
Absolutely.
That's what they do. They do that to the 100th degree. And we better do the same thing. We have a window. We have a short window to do that. And that it doesn't close November of next year. It starts to close late this year.
I would argue
you really have enough time to do big stuff. So they've got to go big.
I would argue it's closing right now.
Right, exactly.
We need to get
I
stuff.
think you're right.
These are big projects. We need to get things moving. People need to see things happening.
Absolutely.
And the jobs need to be created, and all of that reverberation effect from major building projects that happens in every community.
Correct.
We know this works, which is
Correct.
why it's insane to me that we're not going even bigger than what this bipartisan deal is.
Right. Again, if you go bigger, great. If they settle on that, it's not enough. I mean, I've been doing a little research for something I'm working on, and I was a candidate then, May 2009, May. Cover Time magazine. It was an elephant basically going extinct. Why is the Republican Party dying? That was right around the time where we started. Remember Baucus? We were all waiting around for Baucus's magical bipartisan health care deal. And it dragged and it dragged and it dragged. And as a candidate running statewide, Strickland was in the 60s. Obama was in the 70s in May of 2009. And it just started to go down as we dragged all this stuff out. And in the end, they got a healthcare deal done that we all know was better than what it was. But it dragged for so long. The opposition was revved up. No one really knew what it was. And 2010 happened. And so far, I think Biden shows that he learned that lesson. But on infrastructure, it's got to you can't just keep dragging it out and letting them water it down.
No, I'm right there with you.
It's self-defeating.
Last line of question I got for you, because, at the end of this, we're still talking about a 50-50 Senate. Ohio is one of those states that potentially, with the right candidate, and I know there are a number of people out there. I like Tim Ryan an awful lot. Ultimately, Ohio could be a state that a Senate seat gets picked up, much like Pennsylvania. And then maybe some of this stuff is moot in 2022, but I don't want to wait that long.
No, I don't either, but I will say I think I saw a map the other day that did not have Ohio on it. I think that's a huge mistake. I think Tim Ryan is a great candidate, and the people he's running against, I mean, you don't take it for granted. It's Ohio. Republicans have done well lately, but this is not the JV team. It's the middle school team. Mandel, Jane Timken, J.D. Vance, the stars of the Republican Party just a couple of years ago, not one of them would have even been anywhere near the list. I mean, Mandel got his brand crushed by Sherrod Brown. Tim is a great candidate. He gives as good a speech as anyone I've ever seen, and he's got a good organization building. I mean, we'll see an upcoming fundraising report, but I like his matchup. Now, we also have a governor's race, and as you know, those are tied together. So one of the challenges will be make sure our governor candidate, is hanging in there against probably the incumbent. But head to head, I think Tim has a nice shot. And we've also, let's say I'm not going to say they're going to struggle, but let's hypothetically say they do. We have a history, Sherrod won by 7. DeWine beat Cordray, the Democratic candidate for governor, by 4. So in a closer year, there's some history of some splitting. I think Tim is offering up a really good message, and you love it. It's just all about dealing in the workers. That's all he talks about. Every time I've seen him, deal in the middle class, deal in the workers, let them be part of the success. And that's how Sherrod Brown won Ohio. And frankly, and Tim Ryan, he's not just saying it; it's who he is.
Yeah, he's a Northeast Ohio guy. Yeah, comes out of Youngstown.
That's a race that I think again, there are a lot of things going on, but head to head, I think he'll be the stronger candidate. The question is there enough surrounding him to keep it close enough that he can win?
Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see how it plays out, but I have the utmost hope that Ohio finds sanity. David, absolutely. I appreciate the time. As always, good stuff.
Good talking to you. Take care.
Good stuff. David Pepper, former chairman of the Ohio Democratic Party. At the end of the day, like he said, I think Tim Ryan in Ohio could be someone who takes on the Republicans and does well. Because look, he's in the same mold in my view as Sherrod Brown. Love to hear your thoughts. You can email me, rick@thericksmithshow.com. Quick break. Right back. Stick around.
Remembering that united we bargain, divided we beg. Rick Smith.